Hello and welcome to episode 170 of Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly podcast where we have a chat and figure out what we think about everything in the world. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
And this week we have come up with the subject of failure. Fail fast. How to fail. Don't succeed.
Fail early.
Fail. Never succeed. Always fail. Always be failing. ABF. Just that people talk about, fail fast and all that, but what does it mean to actually... How do you know you failed?
See, how do you know what you wanted to do? How do you know you haven't failed?
How do you know you haven't failed? And
tricky.
What if you're tricky? And it comes into like pivoting in business. We've got to pivot. And some people are pivoting so much that they're just wasting time. And sometimes you got to stick with something. Sometimes you got to just go, no, sack it off.
You've got to know when to fold.
You've got to know when to fold. Sunk cost fallacy, all that, and fickleness. In the converse thing. So that's the subject episode line, and we're live on Twitch. Michael Forrest on Twitch is where we stream it, because there's no point streaming on a new one that we don't every week. Blah blah blah. Why am I saying that sort of thing? We are going to hopefully this isn't too choppy, because I'm getting CPU issues. But anyway, right, that's the episode subject. I'm going to press the button and it's going to swell up, and then I'm going to go. How's it going, Ivanka?
Do you know what, Michael? I've had a very productive morning.
Productive?
Very productive.
Is that why you were late?
I failed at nothing. I failed at nothing apart from being on time.
No, that's fine.
I was 3 minutes late. It was only 11:03.
It's true.
I mean, that is late. You are right. I'm sorry. But I woke up before 6, straight up, out of bed, paddleboard in hand, down to the seaside, paddleboarded, whilst Nick was walking the dogs, waved at one dog, swam out to join me. Then he changed his mind after being
a random dog or a dog you know?
No, my dog.
Okay.
My dog.
Said like
loves
a
to
dog.
One of our dogs.
Oh, you've got the multiple dogs. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So he came back. He came and joined me for a short while, and then changed his mind and swam back to shore. But he managed to not tip me over. And then I had a swim because it was beautiful.
Paint me a picture of this paddleboarding. You're standing on it? No.
You're standing up, yes.
You're standing up, so you are sort of like, it's surfboarding but without the surf.
Yeah, it's not, no, there's no, it's not, one can paddleboard in a wavy sea situation. Well, one can, and I have done it, and you do it. But generally it's more of a sort of tranquil, hold your core, meditate sort of an activity.
Like a yoga boarding.
Sort of. I mean, I do go out when it's choppy, but it's not that. It's not that it's not fun, but I think the generally it's more of a tranquil activity.
Got it. I've never done it.
It's nice.
Okay.
I do enjoy it. And this morning the sea was particularly flat, a bonanza, as I may have already said once or twice on the podcast before. But the sea was beautifully flat. Came home, had some coffee, obviously. A shower in the garden, because it's that time of weather. Shower in the garden. It's shower in the garden weather. Then Nick and I both went to a doctor's appointment. He, because he has a bit of a cough, and me, because I thought I would be responsible. I haven't had one of those general checkups for ages. So I had
everything okay?
Everything's cool. I'm going to have some blood tests and stuff generally, just to check that I'm not, not... Because, 46, I've got to think about these things. And then got back, did a random bit of, and then thought, I could just do this little bit of gardening before I have to speak to Michael. And this was where my 3-minute delay failure came in.
Okay. But you got it done. That's good.
Done.
It's a pretty good morning.
Just like a machine. How's your morning? That's why I'm a bit red, though. That's the only downside of this whole experience.
I mean, you can't. It's not showing up on the video so much. So don't worry about it.
Thank you for filtering me.
I feel a bit red. It was an 850 calorie workout this morning. Ooh, pumping irons. It was mostly like leg things, and so I'm going to be complaining all weekend about my sore legs as we walk around. This week was good. It was Sharon's birthday on Monday. I ended up like writing a little short story for her. Actually, 3 short stories. It's always a bad idea to set yourself multiple things. So I wrote a little thing and then did a really scrappy binding of it. But it was sort of all about the nature of. It was sort of like a thinly veiled Shaz's experience and what it could be if she just quit her job.
Happy birthday, Sharon.
Oh, but thin under the guise of squirrels collecting nuts, whatever. But I'm just quite proud of myself that I didn't push it on them, but that both of her parents have independently said that it was bellissimo and that I should publish it. And they used to have a publishing empire, so they'd know.
So they would know.
I'm a wonderful writer. I made Sharon cry when she read it, so that was good. But yeah, her dad said, "Oh, you should make it into a children's book," and I was like, with illustrations. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll have a crack at that, because the children's book market is pretty lucrative, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, my cousin who died of COVID. One of the things I had an idea, but I don't have the skills to execute. Maybe because I was thinking about who I could find here, was that he and I were going to and had been talking about starting a not a business, like a community group to talk about picking up rubbish and cleaning up the area of Herzegovina where we lived. So then I have started writing this story that's about a little boy of the same name of my cousin who is worried about, who's picking up rubbish, but his name is Peter, Pero, we called him. So there's a nice alliteration, which was Pero protiv plastike. Pero against plastic. So maybe we could join forces on the children's story thing. Or you could give me some pointers.
I could, but if it's going to be in like Croatian, isn't that going to put me at a disadvantage?
Not if you're doing the drawing.
Oh, the drawing. Well, I'm going to try and get Sharon to do the drawing, so let's see.
Okay, maybe Sharon can do the drawing.
Maybe Sharon can do it. Maybe we can just get Sharon into like illustrating things. She does have a wonderful way with a paintbrush, in my opinion, but we'll refuse to admit it. You've seen her Instagram. She has some nice things on there, right?
She does, yes.
But anyway, I don't think she's paying attention. I think she's got meetings this morning. So let's transition, because she's not said anything on chat. Let's go into
we talked about her a lot.
Exactly. Let's go into a break. Failing. So I failed this week. No, I decided to chalk up 2 years of work to a failure last week. So that's one reason I wanted to talk about this. And part of that was, I just read a book on the subject of marketing and talking about your stuff and building a business that grows and all that kind of thing. And I just looked at it and everything. I could see what I had to do next, but I could also see how much I was just fighting against human nature. Like, people are not consistent. I am unusual in how consistent I am with my self-tracking and my turning up and doing things every day, and it's just it's a losing battle trying to sort of convince anyone that that's something that they're going to start doing, and a lot of other reasons, but I thought 2 years, I've tried a lot of different things, and I thought I could just hang on to this, because the idea of it was it would be so great if it did succeed. And I'm talking about my Changes app mainly, which is the mood tracking app that tells you about changes. And I think I had to just admit that I created this whole thing about encouraging people to try something different. And then just as I launched it, COVID hit, and then everyone was forced to make a really big change that they didn't want to make, and then nothing could change for another year. Like, nothing could ever change ever again for the next, 12, 15 months. So I timed it very badly. And just, I've put it out, it's just not, people aren't, going, oh, cool. They're going, And I've tried everything that I've learned, and I just meanwhile I've got this other thing that's doing well without any shepherding from me, and it's like, okay, I didn't want it. So a year ago, why didn't I just go, oh, this thing's just taken off and I'm making more money than when I was contracting all of a sudden from this app that I made 5 years ago? Why didn't I just run after that straight away? And it's because I didn't feel like I'd done due diligence. I didn't think I'd given my efforts justice yet on the thing that I'd just spent a year working on. And why, maybe I should have just run after the new thing straight away, and I wouldn't have wasted this next year. But then I would have just had this thing that I'd sort of done a bit of a half-assed attempt at, and I wanted to just follow through on it. And that's something that I see some, especially after having seen some founders they'll pivot every freaking month. And when you're the one building the stuff, it's like, can we just see if this is going to work before we give up on it? And so I sort of wanted to keep it going. And now, but now I've sort of said, and it's the same way with the contracting quitting. It's I think it's just better to kind of draw a line rather than sort of hold on to it and then try and do something else at the same time. I think sometimes you've got to go, yeah, okay, I think that's a failure. Let's just have the difficult conversation with the designer I've been working with, who was very cool about it, to be honest. He may be here, he may not. Yeah, so that's sort of what's driven this. That's why I said let's do failure this week.
Nice. Well, congratulations on failing. Apparently that is one of the important things that leads you to success.
So I've heard.
It's part of success. That's what people say in all the books on the internet when they go, rah, fail fast, and all that thing. But but also it is worth. I think it's the thing you said about due diligence was the it's how do I know when I've tried hard enough, or what do I? Because you sort of, I think with failure you sort of want to avoid regret.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
So you're I don't want to go, well, if only I'd just done a little bit more on that, maybe it would have been better, or if only I'd have. So I think you need to do enough to know that or to try and shore yourself up against, so you've made the right decision when you're going to shore yourself up against regret. I think is the best way.
You've had a good crack of the whip.
Giving it a good go. Tried some measuring things. I think with that whole some of the founders pivoting thing.
Yeah.
Often I think with them it's very hard to get them to hang on to a couple of metrics or a couple of things to chase or measure or look at. So it's that whole, can we just see if it's going to work? I think, but you are not that person. You are quite good, to the point about the app itself. Measuring is not one of your, not measuring is not one of your shortcomings. It is one of your superpowers. So, yes. So that's good though. But
yeah, well, thank you for yes. It's yeah. And am I even sad about this? Well, the thing that happens when you say, okay, that I'm parking that, is that suddenly your brain is free to explore all those other things. So all these things that I've had in the back of my mind, and now in the front of my mind, and I'm just sort of scrawling down ideas like a crazy person. Video viewers will be able to see my sort of little grid of sort of thoughts on the next thing I'm going to do, and also one of the reasons I didn't just switch to the other thing was I just don't see how I can influence that. I don't know how I'm going to control that. It all feels beyond my control. And then I thought well. But then as soon as you look at it for a bit, it's well, no, I could try this, I could try that, I could make, no, and then it could be this. And it just when you're holding on to something that is failing, your brain doesn't have any space to be creative about something else. And you also, and one thing that was very interesting that came out, so the next thing I'm doing is this, I'll say it's going to be squares.tv, and it's going to be all about video, streaming and audio production and how to record a podcast the way we do it, and all that kind of stuff, and all about the processes that I love creating. Like I spend a lot of time like coming up with cool workflows and processes and little tools and all those kind of things, and that's something I'm really interested in. And that's why there was a little app on the App Store that I made, because it was like, well, this is an easy solution to a problem that no one else seems to have solved. And so that's something I get excited about. But then I sort of, just by thinking about that for 1 week, I realized that I'm targeting creative people, artists, like content creators, streamers, and there's a whole mental health and productivity angle to all that. Like there's a whole like burnout, like how do you avoid procrastination, getting depressed when things don't go well, getting depressed when things do go well, like so there's like there can literally be like, you know, in the 4th bit navigation section of the website links to, you know, to that stuff, but it can just be sort of like it's there if you want it, but like that's not the main focus. But then maybe so all of this new thing, this pivot sort of in a way like still I'm refocusing, and then that's creating different opportunities for a lot of the stuff I'd already done, beyond not just the products but also like all the, you know, the reporting and the way I do you know, what I'm looking at and paying attention to, and how to do marketing and how to send emails and how to like do the campaign referral, all that kind of stuff, all that stuff that I've learned in the last 2 years will just apply here, and hopefully it will be a lot easier to execute on than it was when I was going against human nature. This wasn't supposed to be quite so much me talking about me, but like anyway.
Well, but I think, you know, there's quite a few things there. One, the word pivot is a bit annoying. Everyone's pivoting at the moment, more so than ever before, I think. Yes, but the refocusing, I think that's nice. And what you said about it, you know, emptying space or releasing space in your brain, because me deciding not to be a trustee anymore has made a big, that's such a nice, weirdly it's like once I decided, then you know, and it's not particularly it's not really a failure decision in that sense. Like there wasn't a project that has failed to happen. It's more like reaching the end of a period or a chapter. But I think, the sense of the lightness that is created because you don't realise how much energy you can put in focusing on something that's not, you know, I don't know, not giving you any joy.
Yeah. And you think, if I just stick with it, well, maybe it'll be different. Or like I put some. It's the sunk cost fallacy thing as well. Fallacy thing. I can't tidy these things up out anymore.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No one minds.
I just clinked a glass on my mic. Sorry, everybody. I'm hydrating. It's hot.
Hydrating. I might hydrate. So I was going to say, yeah, like we could. I'll play a break and then we can like talk a bit about like holding on to something for too long. F6. That was oh no. That was a video of a dog park with a nog canny, and then I panned through, and then there was a man walking a dog in it. It's like, come on, guys, you had one job. Don't walk your dog in this park. What was I saying? Right. So yeah, we both worked at the same place and had very different approaches to holding on to that thing. It's like I spoke to David last week, and he was like at Canonical. So David was the first one to go, well, why am I sticking around here? What do I need this for? And then I sort of like I was like, yeah, he's right, and I wasn't too far behind. I was like, I need to be out of here before the next 2 weeks in a hotel somewhere random, Florida. It was going to be. Whereas you,
held on
for dear life for a very long time. And what do you think what you know, why couldn't you just admit that it wasn't going to work? And maybe did we leave too early? Maybe we could have still made it work. But it was like we really did try everything we could think of. Like me, but maybe you had more ideas. I don't know.
I think that part of it was like, I mean, one of the years of my hanging on was me going travelling for a year.
That doesn't count.
Like a year-long meditation on whether or not I should come back to my job when I was done. But I don't know. I mean, there's some things that, I wanted it to succeed.
Yeah. That's the thing.
I really wanted it to succeed. I wanted it to succeed.
Yeah. It would be so great if this succeeded, even though I can't see how it will. But I just really would be great if it did.
Really, really, like, what can I do? I'll do a different job. Sure, no problem. I'll do something. Like, But that, I think, really, it's like with I think I will bring this back to climate change because, I always do. But there's things that I was talking to somebody, there's so much about the climate change and where we're already at that is just so fucked. It's just, it's bad. But that doesn't mean we can't and shouldn't have hope, and we can't keep adapting and shouldn't keep adapting, and we can't keep doing things. But I think that I sometimes conflate real life, with a job. Or with a product or with a thing, and actually that's not really the thing that is necessarily what one should hold on to, I think but for me, and I'd also associated, I years and years ago I did this HR training-y thing, or sales, I can't remember what it was, but something. But one of the messages that stuck in my brain was this idea that, like, in order to really get staff loyalty and to motivate people, you need to help them tie their own hopes and dreams to your organisation, so that then, like, your values get intertwined, and the idea of working somewhere else becomes quite hard, and it's much more satisfying and feels more meaningful at work. And I think with the whole open source story, I had attached that massively to my personal values, and to it is part of my personal values, and I couldn't let it not do well. It's like, well, then I've got to reevaluate who I am. Like but then having done that stint in open source, I think it's also it's the human nature element of people. This came up last week. I was talking to the same person I was talking to about the how fucked we are. It's like,
sorry, Annette.
Sorry, Aunt Annette. Sorry, I do try, but sometimes it's the only word in this context.
It is the correct word, right? It's appropriate.
We were talking about how disappointing it is when you're working in places where seemingly there's a shared set of values, and yet people don't behave nicely, or they're sort of like all at each other. So I think I think it was a deeply personal connection that I made to that, and I just could not accept that it was not what I had dreamt it up to be.
So then,
basically,
So then, and I think, like, it's very identifiable. Like it's like, and there's a strength in holding on to something, like, for dear life.
My love of it meant that we did ship Ubuntu, that phone demo for MWC was. And I will take this as a personal. I have played a big part in that because I was so motivated. I motivated other people. When you feel really positive and really passionate about something, it's like, it might not work, but wouldn't it be amazing if it does? And people can latch onto it. Like, I latched onto it, but I also helped other people latch onto it. It's like,
and similarly, I've just done that. I got another person doing my thing, because it is like that idea of if it did work, but when that's not connected to, like, you haven't got a bridge from reality to that. It's like maybe a bit of a losing battle. But I just want to ask, like, what was it that, like, made you say, okay, this is not going to happen?
I think that my own life and maturity came into play.
Right.
But, I mean, my husband and my mother were about to stage an intervention. I basically I had driven that Ubuntu demo for MWC, which was like...
what is MWC, by the way? Just for
Mobile
the casual...
World Congress, which is where all the mobile innovators go every year and show off. Yeah. And we did... There's another one in... Vegas that I couldn't go to because, of course, having helped get the thing on a phone, my back completely gave out, so I couldn't fly. And it was like, because I took it on a personal, like there were 200 engineers, there were designers, we got it done. And we didn't fail, and we succeeded to ship. And the thing that tipped me over the edge was after I'd proven that when you had a nice collaborative environment that talked daily, that were driving towards a very clearly understood goal of what does it need to do to be classified as done. This is what it needs to be. Yeah. This is what it needs to be. And we did it. And then once I had done that, I was then told, it's like, thanks for that. Right, we're now going to hand it off into that process that you have been watching for the last 4 years. And I was just like, I don't understand what I need to do here. I'm going now. Thanks.
So
bye.
Sometimes it just takes that like kick in the teeth for you to go.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know how else to prove to you other than shipping this thing that was met with acclaim.
Yeah. So there we go.
What else? Because there's nothing to do. So really, I suppose it's that, and the fact that that was really the moment of conversation. I was like, this isn't for me. All right, also, I wanted to have a baby.
Yes. Well, that's not. I think like as stressful. There we go. All right, I'm doing a. I was just thinking, this idea where your identity gets like intermingled with your job. I was just thinking, I was having a conversation yesterday about why sort of conservative values, like I'm going to take this into the politics realm, into sort of like the woke culture wars versus the blah blah blah, people that think everything's perfectly fine. I think that. If admitting, so how can I say this? Like, if the thing that I am doing fails and that thing is conflated with my own identity, then that means the thing is a failure. Therefore, I am a failure, and that is not something I want to deal with. I think it's the same with my. If your progressive values are driven by the fact that the system is failing a lot of people, but there is a vocal minority of people for whom the system is not failing in any obvious way, and for them to admit that the system was failing would be a bridge too far for them. So rather than go, I can see how from your perspective it's not a very good system, if that is tied into your identity of who you are, then you're going to hold on to that for dear life. So what kind of kick in the teeth would it take for someone who is defending these, like being conservative, defending the status quo with all of their might and ranting and raving about cancel culture and woke elites and all that kind of thing? What kind of kick in the teeth would the system have to deliver to them after they've done all this work defending it, for them to go, oh, maybe we're actually all on the same side, and the system isn't perfect, and maybe I am not the system after all. Maybe my identity can be separated from that. Just answer that easy question.
1 moment,
it's
please.
Really easy.
Your call is important to us. But the thing, I don't know. I really don't know, because I think that they're not just a vocal minority. They are a vocal, powerful minority.
Yes.
They have held on to the power. They are like that wonderful expression I heard recently when that woman was describing the ruling classes, and she was like, they're just the people whose ancestors were the biggest bullies.
Yeah.
And it's like, they probably are still bullies. I mean, I can't see. I cannot personally. I think if a pandemic, if the sort of like an appreciation that you've all physically, bodily, biologically are kind of vulnerable to this thing. You can't really protect yourself completely. It's very hard. Obviously there are layers of privilege in this and all of that, but still. And then so you've got this happening, and I cannot personally picture it any other way than the swell of people, the woke, the educated classes becoming bigger and bigger and bigger is, in my mind, the only way that this the power of people's ability to think. It's like, maybe I'm a totally naive, crazy person, but I think the more children know, hang on a minute, what? They're a different colour. What do you mean? The more of that we see in our world, the better the world will become. And those vocal, powerful people will just be shouted down. They won't get to be heard. That is my, woke, lefty, commie approach to that.
Yeah, I suppose when your sort of platform is Fox News, Daily Mail, it's sort of, one of your power comes from your voice, and as much as everything else, so the money kind of goes into the power. And then Fox News is saying, if you see someone forcing a child to wear a mask, that's child abuse and you should call the police immediately. And it's like, what what are you doing here? What is your
But have you heard in the UK that Great British News, or whatever that new channel is, the GB channel, is struggling already because advertisers are boycotting it? Because we won't buy their shit. We are not powerless. That's the thing. These small vocal minority of extremely powerful people are powerful, but we are not without power. And I think we are really, and I mean everybody who relies on a salary to live, that's who I mean by we, the people without infinite wealth, we understand that we have power. So and choice.
And just to pull it back to failure, because I was trying to put this through the failure lens. People, if people can't see that something is failing, or it's like they would rather invent an alternative failure than see the failure that is in front of them. I don't know.
I just don't think they will ever see it as failing, because it's not failing them. It goes back to measuring. What are you measuring that will help you understand that this has failed? What are you looking at? Are you clear on what you're trying to achieve? If they're trying to achieve retaining power, then they're not failing. They're not even trying to achieve everybody having equal access to water, food, education, medicine. That's not their goal.
Their goal is not dignity, and
no, dignity is a beautiful word.
I mean, Biden is doing some good stuff, isn't he? He's saying the right things according to The Intercept. He's saying it's not about jobs, it's about wages, and it's about, if we get to full employment, then suddenly it's not that the workers have to be treated with dignity because there's one worker per job, and now if you don't treat them right, they can go, and all that kind of stuff. So at least there's someone in that powerful position saying the right sort of thing. But still, we've definitely got a long way to go, and it's
this, Michael, is why I think children's stories are so important.
Children's stories.
You have to paint a picture in people's minds of the world that you want them to be able to live in. I read this. My daughter gets bought all sorts of obviously progressive educational stories, but we were reading about Lady Hale, the judge, last night, and it's just it's not a fluffy story. It's a story of a lady becoming a judge and the children going to see her, and she talks about how important it is that you get women's perspectives and men's perspectives when you're judging, because you have a different experience and different knowledge, and you can just then talk about these things with your child and go, well, what do you think? Do you think that's fair? Is it not? What is it? It's so children's stories, because my daughter's got a very strong sense of right and wrong. She doesn't always. She also, you also can watch out for her prejudices, or I can watch out for her prejudices by reading stories to her and talking to her and understanding what she thinks is weird or not, or how much of it is. But children's stories, I'm sure I read. I used to love all the stories where kids went to like clear somewhere and build a den, make a thing, and like, you know what I mean? I think that's important.
Yeah.
For children.
And you're sort of forced in a children's story to not overcomplicate it. You're forced to kind of say it very clearly and with whatever squirrel-based allegory that you can come up with.
Exactly. So yes, I think the failure, I think that's where it's at for me. Anyway, what was your next point going to be?
Oh,
Michael?
I don't know. No, I think that's a good point. But obviously, like, I'll get back to you when my children's storybook takes off and makes me too rich enough to be able to afford to fail. Because there's the being able to afford to fail is something else we should probably have a quick look at.
I think especially in the work context.
Oh, but also just in the wealth context, like the Steve Jobses and the Mark Zuckerbergs could afford to fail. Jeff Bezos could afford to fail. Like, nothing great ever happens. You have to be very, very particularly lucky to succeed if you can't afford to fail. And although I remember the guy that made Populous, his story is a sequence of like hedging bets on hedged bets and remortgaging and credit card debt that somehow just at the very last moment he managed to like explode out of it with a very successful Amiga game. But which I'll link to the video on that because that was interesting. But most of the time, the people that have done the great things have failed a few times along the way, and I mean I'm just spouting stuff that comes out of those books, and you can't afford to keep failing unless you have some sort of investment or some sort of wealth, or your low costs, and or just someone you can sponge off or whatever it is.
But also like yes and in a work context, though, if you're talking about a work environment that is just toxic and unhealthy for you and stressing you out and taking more of your life's energy than it deserves, sometimes you've just got to have faith in your own self and your own ability to get the next job, to pick up a contract. And I think where my parents failed to leave me in a state or an olive grove, what they did leave me, or what they have invested in me, or like built inside me, is the full confidence that I'll stack shelves in a supermarket if need be. I really don't care. And it's like, I won't do. And obviously they also gave me enough education that that's an unlikely scenario. But when I quit a job, I feel like I'll sort myself out. I'll do something that is needed. And I think that's also something that more of us could do with. Just confidence that you are allowed to have dignity at work, and there can be more dignity stacking shelves sometimes than dealing with some knobhead
where the money's good and you feel like you can't leave because you've got all your everything's tied up in it, and you're in the middle class trap, and etc. etc. Do you know what I'm going to do? Like, if my struggling computer will launch the document, because it is dying and I am so sick of having to figure out why my Mac is useless. I'm going to tell you my it's a story called Swimming that I wrote, and it's just a couple of paragraphs. It's not very long. So here's my story. Here's the deal, said Frank. You work here for 1 year, and then you can go swimming for 6 months on us. What's the job? Asked Sharon. We hammer your legs all day. Sharon goes, you hammer my legs? And he goes, yeah, leg hammering. It's for our experiments. And Sharon goes, experiments? And he goes, yeah, to find out the effects of hammering on legs. And he goes, yeah. So that's every day? No, it's just weekdays. You get the weekends off. And then I get 6 months of free swimming. Yeah, in any of our pools in our extensive network, wherever you want. Best pools in the world, full access, premium swimming pools. Swimming was Sharon's favourite thing to do in the whole world, and all that free swimming sounded amazing. And maybe the leg hammering wouldn't be as bad as it sounded. That is my shitty little short story. And on that reaction, titles. All right, thanks for listening. Such an insecurity attack I had after reading that.
Such an insecurity attack. I thought that was a good short story. I was about to go into that whole, like, we could have gone off on retirement. There's loads of stuff in there. I've had my legs hammered repeatedly in many different jobs under the guise of one day you'll be able to go swimming. No, don't. It's not worth the hammering, people.
We're giving you all this yoga money and therapy money. It's great. It's a perfect situation.
I mean, that's the this is going back to the whole why didn't I leave earlier?
Yeah.
Because I thought the leg hammering was worth it, because it was more than swimming. It was more than going to be a swimming pool. It was going to be a swim. Everyone was going to be able to go swimming.
Free swimming for everyone. The world's greatest swimming pool.
And I think that's the problem.
It was like me with my app. Like, if everybody was just a bit happier, maybe it wouldn't be so toxic out there, because people wouldn't be blaming other people. If only. So yeah, like, I guess that's the next terrifying level of it. But there we go. That's my little allegory for it. Leg hammering. If you like this podcast, you can make sure you're subscribed at grandpodcast.com, and you can tune in every Friday morning at 10 o'clock UK time, 11 o'clock Croatian or Italian time. I'm in Italy still. And on Twitch at https://twitch.tv/Michael Forrest. All one word. Where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
And you can find me at Michael Forrest on all of the platforms. If you want to just have a kick around the stuff I just finished doing, it's not going to die, it's not going to disappear, it's still useful. I'm just not going to be trying to promote it or anything anymore in the same way. You go to goodtohear.co.uk. And then in the next few weeks, I'm going to be revealing squares.tv, so that's exciting, isn't it?
Whoa,
and starting off with showing how this podcast is put together, is performed live. What else is there? Patreon,
yeah. You know, I have added after last week's episode, microgrants has gone on my
So that's so no progress apart from the post-it
note.
No,
I wrote it on the post-it.
You did mention sticking it on the post-it note last week, so we're a week in.
Oh no, so. I'm too busy. Too busy finishing my latest.
If you support us on Patreon, Ivanka is going to organise microgrants from our Patreon money for people doing good stuff that is consistent with the stuff we always bang on about. Doesn't that sound good? Yeah, so that's Patreon and all that. So we will see you next time. Bye. 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 Bye.